This program brought to you by the legendary performance of Pengana Capital. Pengana Capital, vision in action.
Hello and welcome to today's episode of the Heroes of Business and Sport. Today our News Director Louis White interviews Simon Poiterman, a former Wallaby great and now an Executive Director of Pengana Capital. Enjoy today's show.
Simon, thanks for joining us.
Louis, pleasure.
When you were born, your neighbour said to your mother, "That's not a baby boy, that's a footballer." I'm assuming you were quite a healthy young child.
You've done your homework very well, mate. Mrs. Bell next door, yeah, no, it was a much used quote out there, but she was probably right.
So your parents were quite sporty. Were you encouraged? Are you one of 5 children? It was encouraged at home to go out and play sport, or was this natural being part of the country life?
I've just been part of the country life out there. As a country kid, you got a lot more independence than most city kids out there, and you run free in many ways on your block of land out there, and that's what we sort of did. And then you sort of get to school and pick up the sport there. So I suppose you went in with a natural advantage because A, you were sort of fitter from working on the farm, and B, you're a bit tougher because you got flogged pretty hard at work there, so you came in stronger than the other kids.
At what stage would you say, as a teenager or a young adult, did you think, I want to play for the Wallabies, I'm actually going to make it at this level?
It's more a general thing of playing footy and playing well. Although I do remember, I will never forget, in a schoolboy carnival at Yass, one of the coaches said, "Son, you'll play for Australia. You're on fire. You're really good." And I'll never forget that moment in time. But it's not as though then from that time on I've got to play for Australia. It just evolved. I maybe had aspirations to play league at that time, but then I started playing union and stuck with the game.
So after that, March 24, 1980, you make your debut against Fiji. How did that all come about?
We'd had an outstanding start to 1980 with Sydney. Peter Criddle was the coach, and it was a bunch of young guys, and that Sydney side went through the season undefeated. That core of young players became the new generation into the Wallabies.
You described the 1981 Test loss to Wales. I think the score was 18-13. It's one of the most disappointing ever. Why is that?
You got to be there at Cardiff Arms Park to understand. It's a sacred ground in the rugby world. It's a very intimidating but also fulfilling place to sort of play out there. And we really did have Wales on the racks. We went away as being potentially the best ever touring team to leave Australia. We ran into the worst ever winter over there. So that Welsh Test slipped away from us, and they scored a try which was a pretty easy try which shouldn't have been scored, and then Jonathan Davies, I think it was, kicked a field goal. I almost got to it to sort of charge it down, and that would have kept us in the game. I just feel that whisking past my fingers now. I just thought if I'd just been there a bit quicker, I would have got it.
And then sort of a year later, the catalyst, a man named Alan Jones sort of came onto the scene. Tell me about your initial relationship with him.
Alan, he's a very smart coach. Jonesy would ingrain skills in attack, in defence, across every player in the team, no matter either fullback or front rower. You had to be able to pass as good as the guy in number 15. The guy at number 15 had to move a ruck as good as a guy in the front row out there. So that's the way he thought.
So was it, when you went back in 84 to do the Grand Slam, was the disappointment of 81 fresh in your mind, or did you sort of think, different tour, we can do this?
No, it was there the whole time. We knew we had a better team from point of view of structure.
I think in the match against Wales in the 84 tour, it said that the first 23 minutes, Australia played perfect rugby.
It was an interesting preparation because we'd done a lot of hard work in training sessions going into that Test match. And straight away, we're just psychologically putting on them in the scrums. until we had the situation where we had the our scrum feed, 2 metres out from their line, and just shuttered them and just exploded their scrum and scored the pushover try. And that was just incredibly important to every player in that team. Everything we played that day was going right, and because we'd prepared that way, and the team was fit, confident, they had no chance. And that's a good position to be in out there, because immediately you just take control.
So 1991 you decided to retire. Was that before the Rugby World Cup, or was that after the victory?
There are always emotional decisions out there. It was a number of us who sort of, you know it's time. It's sort of going out your own terms out there, and it was a really good time to do it.
So when you look back at your rugby career, what's the fondest memories?
Fondest memories would be just having the privilege to play with the Wallabies. It's a very special team, and to represent your country in a national, international sport is incredibly privileged to do that. To play in some huge campaigns, 1980 Bledisloe, 1984 Grand Slam, 1986 in New Zealand, 87 World Cup, even though it was the first World Cup, so it was great. To sort of play in the other games out there which aren't sort of high profile from the point of view of people say, I don't remember you for that, but 5 Hong Kong Sevens was just an amazing experience of playing the Hong Kong Sevens. So I just had a 12-year period playing for the country, so it was just incredible.
This program brought to you by the legendary performance of Pengana Capital.